Welcome to The CEO Story, brought to you by KC Chauhan, founder of Together CFO, where every week we're interviewing the top CEOs in various industries, sharing their journey and extracting the top things that made them successful. Hey, good morning, guys, and welcome to the CEO podcast. We've got a fantastic show today. We've got Charles Antis of Antis Roofing and Waterproofing. Charles, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. How are you doing?
I'm excellent, man. I'm excited to do the show, Casey.
We're really excited to have you on the show because you've got a fantastic background. You do so much for the community. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how it all started?
Well, I'm Charles Antis, and I am the founder and CEO here at Antis Roofing. I'm in my office in Antis campus today. And we are a roofing company that exists to keep families safe and dry in the HOA market in Southern California. And we do this from San Diego up to Malibu. And this is what I love to do. There's lots of different curves I can tell you how I got here, but I'll try to say quickly who I am is, originally a country boy from a logging camp in Oregon who always wanted to live in California. Pardon my nails, my daughter painted them. They're judging. Oh, I forgot to put my bracelet that my son made. Dang. But anyway, so I'm from this small town and I always wanted to live in California. So I ended up here after a year in college and I was selling insulation door to door. And I was in California, but I didn't love my job, but I was doing it until one day I sold insulation to a family that was deaf. And this family really hit it off with me. I mean, in a couple of hours, I really loved this family. And I came back the next day to collect the check on the deposit. And I knocked on the door and they wouldn't answer and they wouldn't come to the door. And I couldn't understand. And then their neighbor walked over and asked me to leave the property. And how dare I cheat this family who was deaf and take advantage of them, because there was no way that they would have the savings in their gas bills that I had promised. And I looked at what our company promised, the company I work for, and I thought about that family. I was so hurt that I quit my job the next day.
Was it true?
This is true. Was it
true that they wouldn't have got the savings?
I believe, yeah. Well, I never really considered it. I was just doing what the company said. I didn't challenge authority. I mean, it wasn't like I needed to challenge authority, but I didn't think for myself. But when this family put an emotional moment on me, I had to relook at this, and I thought, I believe this family's correct. I can't help this family. They're not going to talk to me, but I can never do that again. And was a principle in business I learned early on, that you must, your name is your word, is your bond, is everything. And everything you say and everything you do matters. And, I didn't say that then, but I started to get that concept. And so I looked for a job, and I was a laborer. When I was a little kid in Oregon looking up, the most manly men around me were ranchers or especially loggers. I mean, and men were men, they did risky jobs. And the men that I knew where I grew up in Oregon risked their life and suffered toil at work. I mean, they worked hard. And it was a different time. And so I was ready to work hard. And the only job that I could see with the skills that I saw in myself at the time when I was 21 and down in Southern California and kind of in between college, it was roofing. And so I took that job, and it was really hard, but that's how I got into it. And the reason I started my own company is the company that I worked for after a few years didn't have enough work. And I had developed a skill where with my hands, I could fix anything that leaked from rain. And I became great at it. No matter what it took, I would take things apart on that roofing, decking, siding, flashing, whatever. And I had this skill that I became great at. And so I was kind of forced to start my own business because there wasn't enough work. And I just sort of called people and said, hey, do you have a leak that no one else can solve? Let me try. And I'll do it for free. And then you'll know I'm great. And then you'll hire me. And that was my business plan. I didn't have kettles or a crew, so I couldn't sell re-roofing. So I was selling this maintenance and repair thing. And the only market I knew was the HOA market because that's where I had worked in the previous company. And that's kind of how the business started 31 years ago.
So for the people who don't know what a HOA market is, can you just clear that one up?
Yes. Well, in California, most homes for the last 20 years are built under these ordinances of a homeowner association, and so the everybody it's in the interest of everyone to have community rules so we keep the property values up. And so that's just how everything is in California, where it's more regulated. And so if you're focused in that market, you can do well because the market's it has its own mood and its own way. And basically what happens is they elect a board that govern 300 homes, and they sell their roofing as a unit. So I'm used to going in and talking to communities, their representatives, about 300 or 500 or 1,000 homes at a time. That's how our company's built to do that. Onesie, twosie homes, we don't really do. We just do the HOA homes. That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And my HOA fees up here in LA are pretty ridiculous. So,
well, I'd love to ask your management company because I'm sure we work for them, but I'm not going to start digging there.
You know what? After the podcast, I'll get you the name of that company. I don't know it off the top of my head, but yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you. Okay, so you were forced into starting like a service and maintenance company just to kind of feed yourself, by the sounds of it, and then how did that then translate into this huge company that you have? A lot of employees now, multiple offices. How did you go from that point to where you are right now?
Well, I'd like to tell you it's because I'm a brilliant businessman. But I do have some brilliance in business today, but I also have awareness where I don't have brilliance. And the area that really where my brilliance grew, looking back now, I wouldn't have known this even 10 years ago, was in social responsibility. And this all started because of a nudge I had almost 31 years ago. And this is a story that I probably tell more than any other story. And it's a story that's profoundly at the heart of what Antis Roofing is about, keeping families safe and dry. And the story was I told you how I started the business. I needed every leak, but I only got a couple of calls a week. And I worked out of my home. I didn't want anyone to know that. So my work one day was putting up weather stripping on the bedroom door that I had converted into an office so that they wouldn't hear my daughter if somebody called. And under that kind of 2-3 call a week thing, I got a call one day from a woman, and she had leaks in every room. And that was good news because I'm going to be able to, make a few $100s a leak. And I'm heading over there the next day. And I'm noticing as I'm getting closer to where her home would be that the homes are smaller, a little more disheveled, until finally I turn on the street, look where her home might be, and just see dead grass. And I pull up, the lump in my throat already, and I see like a 140.5 number on it. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's not it. And I go up and I kind of knock on the door of this simple little dirty home. And 3 things happened. It just flipped everything for me looking back now. And the first was this lady answers the door, and she just has a tired face, like she needs something. And that startles me. But before I can say anything, a second thing hits me. I'm hit with a smell that nearly knocks me over, of mold, mildew, something not right in that home. And so then I start to recoil, as anyone would do. Again, what am I going to say as I leave? But as I start to leave, this third thing happens, all this within 1 second. I feel a tug at my finger. I look down, and there's a little girl who's 6 years old, with beautiful blonde hair and an ear-to-ear smile, who is completely in a different place than her mom and me. And she pulls me in, and she could have pulled me through anything because she was just so fresh and alive right then. But I follow in after her with no thought of what's happening, kind of in shock, smelling that mildew, going through the home, through that hallway, and she turns into this room, and she just smiles again, that same smile, and she kind of puts up her hands. And I knew it was a room because there was a My Little Pony poster on the wall. But when I looked down, as she pointed to that poster, I saw 4 mattresses with moldy bedding. And that was a tough moment because it wasn't tough. it was tough because I was thinking about myself. I had a mortgage payment to make in a couple of weeks. I didn't have that money yet. And this little girl with her big smile in that little room with her moldy mattress was a threat to my early company. And that was a moment that I'll never forget. But that spell was broken by her mom again with that same expression when she walked into the room. And I don't know why the little girl's expression, who was so alive, didn't spark this in me, because I was stuck. I couldn't move. I was scared. It was fight or flight. When the mom walked in with that expression, I just looked at her, and I before I could catch the words, I looked at this woman and said, "I'm going to take care of your roof." And that was the first time that I remember at Antis Roofing where I remember that this condition that we are struck with, where it feels like we just can't let anybody have a leaky roof just because they don't have the money to pay. And so that was that moment where I said that, and it was scary, but I went up on the roof and hoping it was like a simple patch, and sure enough, because there was leaks everywhere, it was just a shot roof. That roof had been leaking for 10 years. And so I got a group of volunteers, and we went up there that weekend, I think, and we gave them a goopy on the outside but dry roof, and that family stayed in that home. And that was a powerful experience into what would be the thing that propelled our success in two ways, looking back now. It propelled our success in culture because that thing that existed between me and those volunteers, and that thing that existed between us and that family, those siblings, there was like 6 volunteers and like 6 siblings. And that thing that we felt, that different way we saw ourselves for that moment. And whenever we thought about it, and still, that is what happens today in culture inside the company. So that was early culture nudges before we even had employees. And now we get to share something like that. But it was also a moment of cause marketing. Even though we didn't talk about it forever, they talked about it. They talked about it. Probably not a lot, but they talked about it. There's volunteers talked about it that showed up that day. And no doubt today, 31 years later, the ripple effect from what people said and thought and did that day on that roof 31 years ago, it still plays back today. Because one thing I've discovered in business and in life, everything matters, and I'm not some religious do-gooder, but I just like, my God, hey, does it work? Oh, let's do it. Does it not work for somebody? Well, hey, maybe we can find a better way. And that is a much better place to be today than where I started. Because even though I gave that roof, I didn't know the magic yet. It felt like, oh my God, how can we do this? And no, another person called, oh, they don't have money. What are we going to do? But, we just searched our soul. We didn't say no. We went to bed. We said maybe. And, we found a way to keep them dry. I've got the same thing happening right now, Casey. There's a very popular, lovely nonprofit with just one of the most amazing nonprofit leaders here in Orange County. And I'll tell who it is because it's always good to mention. It's the Wooden Floor with Dawn Reese is the CEO. And, if everything else going on that threatens them out there, now we have a rainstorm and they have some issues. And I went up on the roof and I'm again, same thing. It's just like 31 years ago. Because I'm thinking, oh man, we got to take care of our people. And I go up on that roof the other day because we had repaired it. One area it was fine, the other area it was still leaking. I went up on that roof with my crew. We did water testing. I discovered, we got to do some work here. We got to lift some air conditioning equipment up, and that was a lump in my throat. Man, how am I going to do that? And And at first, I thought I can't. I got to take care of my people. I go through the same thing every time, but somehow. By just saying maybe, the universe shifts. And you know what? I know I'm going to have an air conditioning contractor show up. I know I'm going to have a metal contractor show up ready to volunteer and donate just like us on the roofing. And we're going to be able to make that nonprofit whole again. And that right there that story will be told inside my company. Those men that showed up, that knowing what we're doing, I took a picture with them up on the roof. They feel good about it. I have another picture with that same guy, Ever Hernandez, that works for me. that's been in all kinds of national campaigns from Ronald McDonald House, because he shows up when he knows that we're helping somebody. He shows up every day anyway. So we're having this culture thing, and then that story is going to be told. And when that story is told, people get to know really who we are. And in an industry where contractors is the first syllable, it's like everyone has a story of being taken by a contractor. Wow, this really helps our brand that we have stories that align with people. Because, I don't blame people for being suspicious of contractors. But today, we're trusted. Today, our stories catch up with people, and they're aligned with us, not cognitively, not with their smart brains, but with that reptilian brain. They don't even know why. Why do you like Antis? And this could be a lot of brands. Could be Starbucks. It could be a lot of brands that do good. Why do you like Patagonia? I don't know. I just feel good when I think about them. And there is a brand association that occurs when you do good in the world, and it's a real story. You're really trying it. You're making sacrifices like the one that I'm asking other contractors to make, and I'm making for the wooden floor here in Orange County in Santa Ana. But when this happens, this is like a miracle, because, and that's a weird word for me to use right now. It's magic. That's a weird word for me to use right now. But something happens that inside and outside that lifts brand, that lifts countenances, that lets us see ourselves forever higher and know that we have more power to do more good. So that's kind of what started to happen a long time ago. I took this way too big right now, but this is kind of where we're at right now. We get to live in this really happy place world where I know those that I'm really close to in Antis Roofing, and I try to be close to everyone, that we have the best job we've ever had in our lives. And that's what I want. We are all in for our people, asking our people to be all in for community, because that's where businesses need to be today if they want to thrive and survive in the new world.
Okay, so let me summarize that. There's a lot of touching and fantastic information there, Charles. So it's about taking care of others, treating them how we would like to be treated ourselves, doing the most we can, but doing it from a place of being genuine. And like you said, so many people get taken by contractors or have a bad experience, and it's not always a good reflection on everyone, but it's generally just being a good person, right? Being humane, giving back to the community, because the community will in turn, it'll all come back around, right? It's karma or whatever you want to call it.
That's what I discovered. It's my stories. It's not, I don't know the model of how and why it works. I've given up needing to know that. All I know is the stories. I know the stories. When I do this, this happens. When I do that, that happens. And so we live in this world.
Would you say that was a fair statement, that the more good you do, you attract more good into your world?
Absolutely. I believe that. However, it's said a lot of different ways, but everything I give, and like I'm doing this show right now. Why? Because I've discovered this little secret, and that's not a secret to you or probably to a lot of people listening, that I used to hoard ideas, and people encourage me, don't tell that, don't share that with everyone else. And you know what? If you know me today, and a lot of people do know me around here in Southern California, I'll share everything with you that's working. I realize you're not going to be able to copy the magic of all of the dynamics of all the team and the people that we do. And so I've lost that fear. Instead, I've literally flipped that into a desire to help you. It doesn't serve me to wish anything less on you. So there's kind of this, now this is not religion, but it's just kind of weird. It's very Southern California weird. There's kind of this oneness theory. And the oneness theory is, if I think of all of us are one, if you are part of me, I can't resent you. All I can do is wish good on you. And I literally train my brain to wish nothing but good on, and to not consider anyone an enemy. Those that I used to call an enemy 20 years ago, maybe somebody who's competing or secretly plotting against our company, if that happens, they're not enemies at all. They're our best teachers. I mean, those people become so important in my life if I don't choose to resent, if I choose to let them teach me. And so it sounds really philosophical, and I apologize, but when you start to give in your company, and when you make giving part of what you talk about and scheme about and are curious about and build programs around and building models around, it brings out this fulfillment in people that is unusual and beautiful, and people are able to flower and see themselves higher. And whether you're as a CEO like me, or you're a beginner, I believe that we all can have magic lives and have a real familiar experience, a family type experience at work. You know, if you go back in different cultures, different times, some parts of the world today, but say a couple hundred years ago in America and a lot of places, there's a lot of amazing stories of industries that are taking care of the people and building in the community. This model of a company being a social steward for its people and everyone around them is not a new model. It just got forgotten about in chasing dollars in this Western way over the last, I don't want to say how long, but there's an opportunity right now with all of the chaos and lack of authenticity in the world for companies to really show up and invest, not maybe in their properties, but invest in their communities, because those stories will be waves that come back. The ripple effect from those things, those stories, the things that we do, come back as waves later. They come back in waves of good employees. They come back in waves of work. They come back in waves of profit. And that allows us, and I don't know why it works that way. I have this expression, I say, I err on the side of generosity with all my stakeholders. We really do, man. It feels like I'm not charging enough on jobs. We're not going to survive. And I don't know why it works. Maybe the volume we do and the intent of the people, but we have a really healthy company and we're really generous. Our average give over the last 3 years has been 4 points on our top end sales. How is that possible? It doesn't make any sense that we can do what we're doing, be competitive, and provide the best value, but that's what we've discovered within our market. So I'm pretty happy today.
So there's been a lot of great times, and I'm sure there's been a lot of tougher times. Can we talk about some of the tough challenges and struggles that you went through whilst building the company?
Yeah, I had a lot of tough challenges. I think I just didn't have a business brain initially. I didn't know anything about business. And so I think just the shocks of regulations and how, I could say this, if you have a concept of becoming a contractor in California, you want to build a business from scratch. I mean, I always wanted to be compliant because my dad always taught me to do the right thing. And yet there were times looking back that I was not compliant. I wasn't compliant 25 years ago when you had to have a regulation for an air quality thing or whatever, when I didn't even know about it. There's just so much to learn and when you start a business. And I think that was so frustrating and fearful for me still to this day. I mean, we have 7 different law firms that are experts in different ways that explore opportunities. And it's crazy what you have to know in business. So I think that's an initial thing for me, starting as a contractor, college dropout. It was like, wow, I'm overwhelmed. It's impossible. But I always showed up. And I had this thing, this concept. I believe that if I try to do the right thing, it'll get easier. And that's what I always did. And so I was able to get through those times and now have a completely compliant company in an industry that's not very compliant. That's sometimes the Wild West. I think that was a really tough thing. I think another thing that was tough for me, because I discovered that my strength in the business outside of repair and masterminding strategies to make roofs last longer, it became clear that I have a marketing brain. I am a linguist, a storyteller, a wordsmith. I mean, I love marketing. I love cause marketing. I love awakening people with story. And so I think that also this discovery that I am really interested in what people think of me. And that's from self-assessments I've taken since then. I used to think that something was wrong with me because of that. And so I think what I'm getting to is one of the hard parts in business was hearing flack, hearing people say something that may not be true about your character, our employees, or our efforts, or our quality. And I was very, very sensitive to that. It was so sensitive that it really caused me to make sure that we do everything we say and we say everything we do. And that was really tough for me. And I think what it in turn has made me more keen in marketing, because I hear the messages, if we're not hitting it right and somebody complains, or if our customer care is not good and somebody complains, I never assume they're wrong. I always listen. If my competitor says something nasty about me, I assume that there's a seed of value in there. I don't think I'm always right. I'm very, very willing to be wrong and trying to get it right. And so, and I encourage the same thing in my team. I encourage us all to fail, and fail fun. I got to come up with a better way to say that, because fail is not an inclusive word. But I really like to crash that stereotype. I kind of got off topic there, but I think that was hard. I used to fail, Casey, and I would fail on a job.
I'm going to actually mention a little bit there, because there's a book that I read by John Maxwell that said, I think it was Fail Faster. I think the kind of the theme of that book was.
I read that.
Keep going through it, go through it quicker. And it's resonating very much with what you're saying right now. It's like, take your ego out of it, go through the pain barrier to a point at which you'll go through it so much quicker, it'll actually become fun.
That, you say that, take your ego out of it. That's such a profound statement. And I don't know, I would have heard this every decade of my life differently, but I have a big ego, and yet I take my ego out of everything, and I can't explain that. And so my ego ends up being fed in the ways that more than I ever could. I get to talk on your show and do this, and yet I come on here stripping out my ego, making sure nothing's scripted, making sure I'm going to tell you exactly what I think in the moment. And the moment you tell me I may be wrong, I'm probably going to go, you may be right. I'm not going to hold on to anything too tight. But my point is that the reason for ego to defend how we look, we get everything back when we smash it. I don't know if that wouldn't have made sense to me what I just said 10 years ago, maybe. But so I don't think I should go down that hole anymore.
We're
but
always evolving and learning and growing. So that's awesome. So if people would like to get in contact with you or follow you on social media, what's the best place for them to do that?
Well, I'm very active myself on LinkedIn. Antis Roofing is very active on a lot of social media channels, but LinkedIn's the only thing I look at. I post almost every day. I love to post moments on podcasts like this, like I will, KC. I'll take some snippets of this and I'll post them where we really hit something maybe new that hasn't quite been said before, because it's only by doing this that we create, thoughts become things. This is how it starts. And I love being in the curious moment. So LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, please, and comment, and let's get to know each other, because together we can change everything in this world. And now's the time this is really going to happen. So LinkedIn.
Fantastic. So we're going to put the link for Charles's LinkedIn just below, as well as for Antis Roofing. And I really like what you said there, that thoughts become things. I think that's really a good parting statement. So Charles, thank you so much for all that you do in the Southern California community, and for taking the time to be on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey. Thoughts become things, so choose good ones.
Thoughts become things, so choose good ones. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.